Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now, today it occurred to me that some of the most popular videos that I did a few years ago were the hot stones demos. But do you know that you also get cold stones? Now, I've actually got some cold stones, so what I thought would be quite useful is to talk you through the basics of how we use them and what they can be used for, and then to do just a few basic demos that you can see for yourself, because you can do them on yourself, you can do them on others, and although it's not an easy treatment to find in salons, there are some salons where you can get some cold stone treatments, specifically because of what the cold effect can do for certain ailments and conditions. So first of all, you might see here that I've got a little selection of stones. Now, these ones here are the little tiny versions of the hot stones, the basalt stones. So these ones are very smooth and they tend to be darker. These are the tiny version. So these ones would be ideal for using on facial massage for the hot stones, but also using on the fingers and toes. And I'm going to show you a little demo of how we can use these on the fingers and toes too. These particularly tiny ones are great for just in between the fingers and toes, and then sometimes you can pop a glove on or pop a sock on, and as the heat disperses very slowly, it's just a very gentle heat and a relaxation. The other interesting thing about the tiny ones are that quite a lot of the time you can buy these very easily online. Sometimes with the tiny ones, maybe not so much now, but 10 years ago I actually got these tiny ones as part of a book. I think I was just somewhere like Waterstones, and it was a very basic introduction to hot stone therapy, and it came with 20 tiny stones, with the theory being that after you'd read the book, you could use the tiny little stones for either a little hand treatment or a little foot treatment. So they were made for anybody to use, and you don't need a professional heater for these ones. You can literally just boil a kettle, pop them in, and then obviously don't place your hand in boiling water, but once the water's still warm but cool, you can either fish them out, or if it's quite significantly cool, take them out yourself, and then they've got the heat within them. But you should remember that different stones, being different sizes, hold the heat for different lengths of time. So the smaller and thinner the stone, the quicker the heat is going to disperse. So it's never going to be really, really warm, and it's going to cool down very quickly. Whereas the really big stones, if you place them in the heater, they're very hot and they retain their heat for quite a while, which is why, again, with the hot stones, you must always make sure that they're not too hot or you will burn. And you've also got to keep moving with them because you don't want to give your client a thermal burn. And also because of the reflex actions in your hand, you can't work with something that's too hot anyway, because your hand will just want to reject it. One of the most common questions I would and still do occasionally get asked on the hot stone videos is when we say that they're heated to a certain temperature, and the question will be, well, if you're saying that it might be too hot for the client, how can you hold it? And the truth is that your hands are used to extremes of temperature. You're using your hands in hot water quite frequently. You might be washing dishes, you might be going for baths and showers, you might be using different products where there's extremes of heat, depending on the job that you do. And the skin on your hands is just much more used to warmer temperatures and extremes of temperature than the more delicate skin that might be on your back, on your forearms, on your legs. And that's why if you're doing a treatment on someone and it might be a tolerable heat on your hands, it could be a shock to the system if it's on someone's face or back or leg. So you've just got to use your common sense, test things out and take your time. But what I'll do is I'll move these ones out of the way and we will talk a little bit about the cold stones. Now, cold stone therapy is quite hard to find, but you will find it in some salons and some spas. But I was having a think about why we don't see it so often, and I think it's got a lot to do with how we associate heat treatments with luxury and relaxation. But if someone gave you the opportunity of having a cold treatment, you don't tend to think about something cool and even things like ice baths. We don't think of that as being something indulgent, but when we think of a warm bath and a heat treatment, we think of that as being very luxurious and a treat and relaxing. So I think a lot of the time, nobody really thinks about cold stones. You might not even know that the cold stone therapies exist. And I think that's because if you had the choice of treating yourself to a heat treatment or a cool treatment, you'd probably be more likely to say, I would like to have the indulgent heat treatment. I want to use the heat to help me relax. But if you actually think about it, the benefits of using a cooling treatment and a cooling stone are actually just as effective as when we use heat on the muscles and on the tissues. So I'm going to chat you through why it might be a good idea to seek this out, or if you're a therapist, why it might be a good idea to introduce some cold stone therapies into your salon's treatment menu. Or if you want to do it for yourself, why it might be a great idea just to buy some cold marine stones or marble stones, because you get different types. Why it could be a good idea to maybe introduce a few of them into your facial routine, or possibly into a routine if you get very achy, tired muscles. So I'm going to talk you through some of the stones just now and exactly how we can use them. Now, these particular stones are cold marine stones, and they are found in waters around volcanic islands. Now, you also get marble stones, and some people do use their hot basalt stones, so they can use them hot and cold. Now, these cold marine stones are smooth enough that you don't have to use a massage medium with them, so you can glide them over the skin with no oil, no hand cream at all. But again, it really depends on what you want to use them for and what your main goal is. So with these particular ones, I have got the option here, which you might not be able to see. I've got the option of the ones that have been chilled down and the ones that have just been sitting at room temperature. Now, these three have deliberately been kept out of the fridge because I wanted to feel how they were just when you actually hold them at room. And the truth is, they're still cool, but they're not icy. But when you actually chill them down, you might not pick it up on camera, but they go from being a sort of light blue to more of a greeny blue. So they take a slightly greeny tinge, but you might not be able to see that on camera. But what you do with the cold stones, just like hot stones, is instead of heating them up, you've got to chill them down. So there's a few ways that you can chill them down. You can place them in ice water and take them out as you need them. And it only needs to be 5 minutes in ice water just to bring the temperature right down. Or you can place them in the refrigerator and then take them out when you need them. Or if you're careful, you can place them in the freezer. But what you've got to remember is, just in the same way that you can burn someone with heat, you can also burn the skin with cold. So please don't take them straight from the freezer and start putting them onto the skin, because there is always a danger that you could give yourself or a client a burn. But again, I'm holding this one and it's very, very cold because these have been in the fridge. And then taking this one, it's cool, but it's not very cold. And what you've got to remember, again, like I was saying earlier, different size stones will have different variations of how they hold their temperature. So with the bigger stones, they're thicker, they will stay cooler longer, and they are going to warm up on contact with the skin. The very thin stones, they're going to warm up a lot quicker with contact with the skin. And then remember the opposite, when it was the hot stones, they cooled down quicker with the skin. So either way, these are very good at holding the temperature that you place them at. But again, when you start working with them, that's when they will come either back up to a warmer temperature, or if it was the hot stones, they would cool down. So now let's talk about the different sizes you get and what they could be used for. So as you can see here, we've got lots of different sizes of the cold stones, but overall these are the small ones. So you can get much, much bigger for doing body work. I would say that you could do body work at a push with these, but they really are quite small. But again, it's the same with all different styles of massage. You just search about and you'll get all different shapes and sizes for yourself. Cold stone therapy can also be used with hot stone therapy, so you could use the warm and the cold together, and that could really help to achieve what these are actually very good at doing, which is they are great for reducing inflammation and swelling because of the coldness and working with the stones. If you get TMJ, a lot of tightness in the jaw and the neck area and the face, great for working on that. Some people actually very gently tap the stones together as well when they're working on specific areas of the face. They're also very good for migraines, for general muscle tightness in the body. If someone has spasms, but again, you've got to make sure that you've got clearance from your doctor to go ahead with anything. Muscle tenderness, tired muscles, tired hands and feet, very achy, tired backs. So if you think about it, because of the coolness, think about headaches when it's constricting blood vessels that are causing a lot of achiness in the head. Think about sinuses when there's congestion and tension there and it's very delicate. Again, not if there's any infection though. Never work on an area that's infected and inflamed. Make sure you've got clearance for that. And think again about decongestion, about really refreshing and wakening up the skin and the muscles and the tissues with that coolness. Now, as I was saying, different stones work on different areas. So your bigger stones could be very good for maybe working on the hands and the arms and the feet. And you can use the edges to really work on different areas. And again, as I always say, that this is me working quite fast, but you would slow it right down and you could spend ages just working on crunchiness and knots and nodules. Now, these tiny ones could be great just for working on the toes and the fingers. Really getting into that crunchiness that's there when you've got lots of tightness. You can also pop these stones in between the fingers. And remember, if you're working on someone, if it's a full body or you're working on yourself and you just want to relax, you can actually hold a stone and you can just place it and just relax and just let the coolness do its thing while you're working on another area. And what's really interesting is the spherical stones, because we've got the ability to move it over areas and just keep working along and just spending time, and we can press down and release and press and release. And the bonus with cold stones is that you don't have to be so careful with not stopping, because when it's a hot stone, you're always encouraged not to stop, because if you stop, the heat could be intolerable for the client. But when it's cold, you don't have that same issue. So if you really want to work on an area, say it was a spherical stone, you could stop and then you could push and release and spend a little bit of time there. And again, depending on what the condition was, sometimes people use 2 stones and they'll just very gently use the weight that's there to bear down a little bit on a muscle to press and release. But there are so many different ways that you can use these stones, and there's so much variety. And what we must remember too is that every time we use them, we must make sure that we clean them, and all you're going to use is just a little bit of soapy water, dry them off, and then just let them air dry after you've just dried them with a towel. So I'll show you a little demo just now on a hand, and I'll just talk you through again different ways that we can use these stones. So just a simple demo of how you could use the cold stones. So imagine that you've got sore hands, you're tired at the end of the day. This is actually going to soothe the tissues, ease the muscles. If you've got a lot of tightness there, if you've got a lot of muscle tension and tiredness, this will actually refresh you. And in theory, it should actually make you feel nice and flexible and really take the edge off any aching hands. So we're not going to use any massage medium, because these style of rocks, if you like, the stones, don't need it because they're so smooth. But you might want to just let the client just touch the stone themselves, just so they can feel the temperature, because otherwise it could be a bit of a shock to the system. So just again, effleurage is always a good idea, just effleuraging over the area. And again, depending on what style of massage you're doing, you could take it right up to the elbow, you could make it part of a full body massage. I think it would be a great idea if you were contemplating introducing it into your own treatments to do the hot and cold combination, because if you do think about it, that would be a great way to treat the body overall, because the heat and the coolness are both adding to the overall relaxation element and to get that body back in balance. And again, flip your stone, because just the same as the hot stones, it's going to fit comfortably in the palm of your hand. But you're also going to find that instead of cooling down, these cold stones are going to heat up. So when you flip them every so often, you'll just find that the coolness reactivates again. And when you get to that stage that you feel that there's not really any coolness in that stone anymore, that could be when you just held it within the palm and just allowed the client or yourself just to let it do its thing, just generate as much coolness that's still there within the stone and just let it finish its job, if you like. But other things that we can do, if I take that away, and we'll turn your hand round again. Again, the spherical stones, just working in circles. And you can take time, remember, just always support, working over different muscles, feeling, because again, just like with the hot stones, you can feel when there's any tightness, you can feel crunchiness, you can feel knots. But remember though, it's not just the client that's actually getting the benefit of these stones, you're getting the benefit too, because it's massaging your hand too. So we're just using the spherical stone over the hand, and we could take it up and just spend some time working over the hand area. And remember, this isn't a routine that I'm showing you, it's just some ideas of how to use cold stones. So that's some ideas for the spherical stone. Then we've got the smaller stones. So you could use those to just do targeted nodule work and just stretch out the palm of the hand, work on the fingers and the thumb. So you could cover the entire hand area. And then imagine again you would work up here too. Or you could spend some time working on the wrist. So you've got your wrist bones here, you could spend some time working there. You could work in between the carpal bones in the hand. So again, you would just work all along here. Again, you could work on the top of the hands. You could work in circles. Or you could take one of each of the cool stones and you could actually just place them in between the fingers. And just allow the coolness, just again, to work on relaxing the fingers as you possibly work on the other hand. And when you've got larger stones, you can do the same thing. You can work all over the hand. Again, just be aware of the pressure. Too light can be irritating, but you don't want to be too heavy either. But you can work all the way up the hand. You could do just straightforward effleurage. Work to the tips of the fingers. Flip your stone. Use the edge of the stone here. Just find an area that works for you. Again, just feeling for where you know would benefit to be worked on. Again, you could work on stretching out the hand with a larger stone. Just working over the area in a multitude of ways that you know feels good. And I always think that to be locked into a routine, you can sometimes miss the point of why you're massaging. You're massaging someone because they want to be relaxed, or they're looking for indulgence, or maybe there's aches or pains there. And to be locked into a routine can often mean that you're missing the point because you're too busy thinking about which move comes after the next one, how many times I've done this move. So I always think once you're familiar with your massage style and your massage movements, think about what it is that the client's looking for and feel it and try and connect with the client rather than just thinking, this is my routine, this is what I must do, because you can get lost in that. And if you get lost in it, you might have missed the point of what the massage was about. But I hope you found that interesting. So that is your cold stone therapy. If you would like to see more, then please leave me a comment. I could definitely do some facial cold stones. I could do some cold stones on the feet. I could do some hot and cold stone alternating. So we could maybe do a back massage where there's some hot stone and some cold stone. But again, I'll be guided by you. So if you would like to see more or you like this video, then let me know and leave me a little comment, and I will see you soon.